Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. Iran, and we'll go through a lot of this, and we're going to basically tease apart a lot of the lies and propaganda. We've never seen a flood of propaganda like this ever. I mean, the closest thing that I saw that resembles this was after October 7th, the amount of Israeli propaganda, 40 beheaded babies, mass rape, this and that, all of that stuff to kind of cover up the sort of massive carnage that Israel unleashed on the native Palestinian population in Gaza. That was a huge mainstream social media propaganda operation. This takes it to a whole nother level. The amount of money they spent on influencers and the amount that the mainstream went and repeated a lot of the fake claims. We'll tell you where the fake claims came from about mass casualties. They even went for the mass rape thing, accusing the Iranians of mass rape and accusing the Iranians of committing a genocide over the last week, if you can believe that. So you can see that what's going on here. They're trying to shift the focus and really shift the blame away from Israel and put the sort of all the ire of the global public onto the government in Iran in order to basically engineer a regime change in Iran. And they've got the U.S. behind this, Israel, the European Union's behind this, the entire Western mainstream media, think tanks, NGOs, the CIA, all the major intelligence agencies. They're all working at this. And the incredible thing is they kind of have failed so far. I mean, this is really, really an extraordinary story, which we'll get into. And I just want to direct people first to the Sunday screening this week. Plan Andina. What's this about? This is about the Jewish state in Patagonia, Argentina. This was an alternative plan to Palestine. Just imagine, back in the day when Theodor Herzl was putting his plan together for the post-World War II, the Jewish state, as it were. The Rothschilds opted for Palestine in the end, and unfortunately, for the region and the world, well, it's been nonstop war, killing, carnage, ever since. So this is an amazing story, and the reason this story becomes relevant this week, and again, thank you to Freddie Ponton for this series. Patagonia Under Siege, How Fires, Foreign Capital, and the Isaac Accords are reshaping Argentina's last frontier. They're talking about Patagonia, one of the most beautiful nature reserves, and also it just happens to be resource rich. And there seems to be some plans afoot to gain control of the natural resources, the rare earth minerals, the fresh water. Javier Milei, or formerly Milikowski, that's where his name comes from, exactly the same as Benjamin Netanyahu, whose real name is Milikowski, both Polish-Jewish origins, it appears anyway. Definitely Netanyahu. Javier Milei is the current president of Argentina. His background I'm not 100% sure on, but it just so happens that some IDF soldiers have been seen running around Patagonia, and an Israeli was caught committing arson or setting fire. And some people blame this person for setting the biggest wildfire in Argentinian history. Anyway, we document everything. This is a two-part series so far. Maybe there's a third part coming. Thank you, Freddie Ponton, our associate editor for global affairs at 21stcenturywire.com. So that's the type of reporting that we're doing, and we are very much topic driven. Whatever is, driving the headlines each week, or what we think is going to be important and crucial, pivotal stories. That's what we're doing analysis on every week, every day, in fact. So again, if you want to support the work that we're doing, please go to the donate button. There's a gold button at the top. There's also a link in the show description on YouTube, as well as Rumble. But you can go to our website, hit donate, and you'll get all the options there for the winter fundraising drive. So a very important story. And you can see Israel's influence on the back of the United States stretching into South America with the Isaac Accords. They were very much a driving force behind the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro and the way that the Trump administration's gone after Venezuela. So we cover all of that and more. So do look for that on our website right now. Bookmark that and do share this article. It's very important. The sequel to this is even more interesting. I think we have a third part coming out on this, but I just wanted to highlight that this week, as well as the Sunday screening, which is so fascinating. And we do a weekly documentary every week at 21stcenturywire.com, and that's curated by our editorial team every week. So we have a fantastic documentary and tremendous selection by the team this week. I'm just, again, blown away. Now, this is the theme of today's show, and we're gonna expose, unpack the lies and the war propaganda around this Iranian information op and attempted regime change. It's still in progress, okay? We'll show you what's happened, give you some updates as well, and how this is actually unfolded. And we'll break it down in a way that I think a lot of you are going to really appreciate. This is going to be a really important deep dive. So just put it into context. I mean, this is how much of a farce this has become, especially with this president in the United States. There's Donald Trump with his blue steel look. That's the sort of fake smile he puts on whenever he does photos. It's the same exact facial look. So it's sort of like Zoolander with the blue steel. Although the blue steel is warping a bit, as you can see. Trump is not in great shape. And he's Maria Corina Machado. This is the U.S. selected opposition leader of Venezuela. They gave her, using the CIA and the Israeli lobby to pressure the Nobel Committee, they gave her the Nobel Peace Prize, even though she's advocating for her own country to be bombed. U.S. obliged finally and bombed Venezuela, kidnapped their president on trumped-up fake charges, and he's in New York on a fake drug charge. And she's also called for Israel to military intervene and bomb her country. So, of course, naturally, you gave her the Nobel Peace Prize. And apparently, she didn't get the endorsement of Trump after they took Maduro out. And so she's given Trump her Nobel Peace Prize. So these are the two most undeserving people on the planet for a Nobel Peace Prize. It just has turned the whole thing into a complete farce. It's a joke. I mean, it was a joke when they gave it to Obama before he even became president. And the rationale they had was, oh, we want to encourage him. Well, they encouraged him to basically do 7 wars during his 2 terms. So great job, Nobel Committee. I think they even gave it to Al Gore for, I don't know, world peace, climate change. Not sure how those go together. But anyway, this has just gone from dumb to completely just stupid. This is just ridiculous. And they're calling her Venezuela's opposition leader. She's not. She's not popular in Venezuela. She's a CIA creation, a Soros, U.S. State Department, CIA creation. And there she is with another construct, this reality TV president come, I don't know, imperial Caesar at this point. It's hard to explain what's going on. We may or may not talk about Greenland. That's a whole nother thing. But here, if you want to get into now the beginning of the analysis, just go to 21st Century Wire. Freddie's done a nice breakdown there. Iran didn't erupt, it was ignited. The hidden hand behind a manufactured crisis. This is a great framework of analysis of what's happened. Again, this is up on our website. This is the type of content that we're producing. And we produce this content for a reason, okay? It's so that you can get a hold of these very complex topics, and we'll put it all into one place and structure it in a way that you can understand. That's what we do on this show as well, but we think it's important to have that written component and that written analysis. It's there every week, and this is an excellent piece. And Freddie's really done a nice job. It's very concise and not too long, but it's got all the main points in there, so you can kind of see what the whole story is, put it in perspective, bird's eye view, also important mechanisms for how the operation was carried out. So we got all that there. So you can start there. Now, what happened? So this was a classic regime change, color revolution operation, a destabilization operation. And the military strike was being prepared in advance, and because the color revolution failed, the violence that they carried out, these are agent provocateurs managed and inserted by U.S. intelligence, and Israeli intelligence and British intelligence were also involved. I mean, that goes without saying. When it comes to Iran, the United States and Britain are hand in hand. They have been since the first coup in Iran, which was a U.S.-British operation, Operation Ajax, if I'm not mistaken, to overthrow the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh at the time, because he wanted to nationalize the Iranian oil, and the British and the Americans said, no, you can't do that. You can't have your oil. It's our oil, they said. So they caused riots, just like we saw in the last week, 2 weeks. They caused riots, and this was back in '53, and it was very dirty. It was very ugly. But in the end, the U.S. and the British got what they wanted. They got the democratic government out. That was the problem for them. And they installed a puppet monarch called the Shah. And Shah was eventually overthrown in 1979 in an Islamic revolution. And all of the Iranians who supported the Shah fled to the U.S., to Europe, to Canada, where they've set themselves up, most of whom, in fact, I would say nearly all of whom are quite wealthy. These are not working class Iranians, all the monarchists, and have been looked after very well by the U.S. government, because the U.S. regard them as a fifth column that they can deploy during times like this. Just like they have a Syrian fifth column, an Afghan fifth column, an Iraqi fifth column, a Libyan fifth column. Wherever there's a war, the U.S. and the British, the Canadians, they keep, Ukrainians or whatever, they keep them in residence, and they use them either to create the future political class that they'll then parachute in. They put them through U.S., British, Canadian universities, French universities, and they keep them on standby for future regime change wars. That's how it goes. That's the neo-colonial system. So it didn't work out, but it was ugly. It was ugly. And even uglier was the misinformation and propaganda campaign that was carried out by our mainstream media, politicians, and all these so-called influencers. So let's get into it. So what actually happened? And so I'm going to break it down for you here, and it's important. We'll go step by step. Okay, U.S.-Israel operation to destabilize Iran. Okay, and just bear in mind, this is not the first go-around. Okay, they've been doing this perpetually for years. Okay, this was just the latest round where they tried to, the West, and when I'm talking about the West, it's the U.S., Britain, and Israel. Okay, mainly the U.S. and Israel in terms of the major contribution for the destabilization operations. And they want to create unrest, they want to create instability and momentum. And if they can get momentum, and then it's followed by a military strike, and then a decapitation of the leadership, and then regime change, hopefully. So it didn't work out. So step one, ongoing brutal economic sanctions of Iran. Just like Venezuela, if you watch this show in previous episodes, you'll know what an important element this is. Okay, ongoing brutal economic sanctions. This is economic warfare on the target country. Okay, the U.S. and its allies do this to weaken the country, and they even admit it now. They're not even hiding it. They say to bring suffering to the people so that the people will rise up and overthrow the, quote, regime, the regime. Okay, basically somebody who is not, who wants to nationalize their industry or who doesn't want to use the U.S. dollar, they become a regime. Or that Israel doesn't like or feels threatened by, or in the case of Iran, a country that supports the Palestinian cause. That means it's a regime, it's a brutal dictator, must be overthrown, according to Washington and the Israelis. Okay, so the ongoing economic sanctions, and the important thing, like Venezuela, and this is what really pay attention. Okay, the West, led by the U.S., will destroy the target nation's economy, and then they will blame the economic deprivation, or they'll blame the unstable economy on the, quote, regime. And they'll say the regime is mismanaging and pocketing and siphoning off all the wealth and starving their people. It's the same script that the Americans use in order to demonize the Venezuelans, or to demonize the Iranians, or to demonize the North Koreans, or to demonize the Cubans, or to demonize the Libyans, or to demonize Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian government, or to demonize the Russians. Okay, they're stealing the wealth of the people. You know, so the U.S. and Trump especially, they have the absolute chutzpah. 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump is saying, no, Venezuela can't have its oil. It's ours. We're going to steal it. We're going to take it. And if they don't let us have it, we're going to crush them. And so it belongs to the U.S. So if you have resources in Venezuela, it belongs to America. And then with Iran, they say, oh, the Iranian regime's stealing all the oil money. This is while they're being sanctioned and cut out of the international money transfer system, not allowed to sell their oil to the West, tankers being hijacked by the British and the U.S., Iranian oil's being stolen in some cases by the Americans, okay, like they do with the Venezuelans. And then they'll say, oh, no, we need to give the oil back to the people. So for the Iranians. I mean, it's not serious, but this is part of the game plan. Okay, so they've established that, and that's been going on for well over 40 years in total, sanctions, and really intense in the last couple of years. Okay, so that's step one. That's ongoing. Step two: CIA, MI6 cutouts, and Western NGO oppositions are created. Just like Venezuela, same thing. We're talking about the National Endowment for Democracy. We're talking about USAID-funded, Western-based NGOs. And the opposition is this monarch, Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah. He calls himself a prince. So the leading candidate for regime change in the West to bring democracy back to Iran is a monarch. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's comical. This is such a clown show. They haven't even got an opposition because the majority of the people in Iran support the government that is under economic siege by the West. Surprise, surprise. But don't tell this to people in Washington. It's too complicated for them. Anyway, back to the list. So they create their cutout opposition. And also the U.S. and the British and the Israelis will try to fund and arm militant opposition within Iran, either in Baluchistan and the Baluchi various criminal syndicates who do a lot of weapons trafficking, by the way, into Afghanistan. So they will pay them, they will arm them to carry out terrorist attacks. The U.S. pays terrorists. They've been funding terrorism in Iran since the Bush administration. They spent billions of dollars, the U.S., to fund Jandallah and all of these, the MEK. These are terrorist organizations. And the U.S. funds them, arms them, in the hopes that they'll destabilize Iran. Kurdish separatists as well, funded, trained, supported by the U.S. They've been deployed as well as Israel, Mossad, which we'll show you. There's plenty of evidence of that. So just understand that's the so-called opposition, mainly armed terrorist groups who carry out bombings, assassinations, and just kill Iranians. And we say these are democratic opposition, which is a joke. So it's beyond laughable. So CIA, MI6, Mossad then insert Gladio-style terrorist cells inside Iran, which they used them back in June when Israel tried to decapitate the Iranian leadership back in June, and it wasn't successful. They did a lot of damage. They killed a lot of people, but they didn't get regime change. So here they're trying to do it again. And they do have covert cells. Iran's a big country. The borders are porous. And so we have sent in the jackals, much like with Syria, with jihadis pouring in over the Turkish and the Jordanian and Israeli border to destabilize Syria and create mayhem, violence and killing. It's the same formula they're using for Iran. It's just a different terrain and a different sort of setup. So Gladio style is false flags, just outright violence in order to provoke police. We saw all this happen already. So step 4. So now comes, they've done this and they have those set up, okay? They have the sanctions set up, number 1. They have the cutout Western intelligence-backed opposition set up, step 2. Step 3, they have covert cells ready to be activated inside Iran, step 3. Step 4, now comes the JCPOA Iran nuclear deal lapsed, and so the EU put snapback sanctions on. These are brutal sanctions from the European side in order to further punish the Iranian population. Why? We're not sure. You know, they don't give a straight answer as to what they're doing the sanctions for, because Iran doesn't have any nuclear weapons. Supposedly that's what it's for. So it's a kind of a criminal syndicate between the U.S., the EU, and Israel. So step 4. So they've done snapback sanctions. That immediately caused a hyperinflationary shock in the Iranian economy. I mean, the currency is already in free fall. And so number 5, here we go. Now I highlighted this because this was the active mechanism. So number 4 caused the first wave of the current wave of economic crash in Iran. Number 5, U.S. and allies attacked the Iranian currency, crashed the rial by 50% in the month of December. So the value just plummets and loses 50% of its value in December. Okay, how do they do that? You have trading desks and other offshore actors buying up large amounts of Iranian currency and then dumping it. Okay, if you do this correctly and strategically, you can cause a panic and a further crash of an already a currency that's already losing its value every year. Okay, so they did that intentionally, and that basically triggered the merchants to come out on the street in Iran, because they're, you know, the price of goods on Monday or on Friday, you know, Saturday close of business, by Monday everything's doubled. That's what happens when you're in a hyperinflationary cycle. This is intentional. This is a strategy of the U.S. to wreck the economy of the target nation and then blame the, quote, regime for mismanaging the economy. And, oh, the Iranian people deserve better, says Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump and all these, Lindsey Graham, these clownish characters. So you can see how this is how it works, folks. And this formula has been carried out in a number of countries. So now we're in free fall. Then before the protest, Trump meets Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago, basically to confirm their military attack on Iran. So it was all premeditated. All premeditated. Okay. So that was what happened after that. Then merchant traders, as I said, peaceful demonstrations in Iran. And then after 3 days, U.S., Israeli, UK intelligence, they co-opt the economic protests. And number 9, the protests shift to violent riots. Okay? Violent riots. That's the plan to destabilize Iranian society and the government, the state, effectively. Okay? So you see those first 9 steps. That's what we witnessed over the last 3 weeks. Okay, step by step. And I could play this out chapter and verse with Syria, with, they tried this with Lebanon, didn't succeed. But this has been done to Venezuela, aspects of this almost to the letter with varying success. But never has there been so much money poured into a full spectrum operation of destabilization like we're seeing with Iran. So this is, again, a playbook, a formula, okay? So, and here is the U.S.-Israeli deception, okay? So Trump meets Netanyahu. They're planning their attack. The media's in the U.S. and they're saying, "Oh, they're just having a meeting." Of course, we knew it was coming. And then you see stories like this planted in the Washington Post. So we're teaching you how to read between the lines. Okay. So normally one would look at this and think it's a normal story. Of course, when I saw this, I knew exactly what it was. I'll show you. And they said Israel and Iran secretly reassured each other via a Russian mediator that they would not preemptively strike. So communications between Israel and Iran last month, Russia played a role as intermediary, and the Israelis said that they would not preemptively attack the Iranians, and then the Iranians reciprocated and said they would not preemptively attack the Israelis. Okay, why is this? What does this story mean? I'll tell you what it means. This was before the protests, okay, or before the sort of wave of instability. So this is Israel's way of pretending that it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on in Iran. We're talking about the violence, the murders, the shooting by all these sort of Israeli intelligence assets, U.S. intelligence assets. Okay, that's what actually happened, by the way. And we'll show you. So, but this is Israel's way of sending a message to the global community that, it's nothing to do with us. They had everything to do with Israel. But what they did is by doing this, it then turns everything back to Washington and Trump. And that's when all the influencers, these hundreds of influencers, thousands of influencers, are being paid to put out videos saying, "Donald Trump, please help the people of Iran. Donald Trump, please help to save the people of Iran. They just want democracy. They want freedom. Please, Trump, only you can save us. Only you can save us, Trump." That's what the Israelis are doing here. Okay, that's what this story is. Okay, this is a deception. They're setting up, it's good cop, bad cop, WWF wrestling, basically. That's what this is. So, planted story creates a narrative, and it makes it look like the United States and Israel aren't working absolutely together, hand in glove, on taking the Iranian economy down, the society, and the government. Okay? So, the stage was set. So we go back to our list. Now we get down to the final call. Number 10, U.S., Israel, mainstream media, and funded social media influencer regime change propaganda. So then that was unleashed all over X and all over Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and all over the mainstream media. And Israel just gained control over CBS News recently through a Larry Ellison-led buyout, and they installed a rabid Zionist as the head of their editorial department named Barry Weiss. So they're pushing a lot of propaganda out of CBS News. So that's kind of Israel's beachhead now in the U.S. mainstream media. And CNN, of course, does their bit. I mean, they all, CNN sort of reported, they relented and took the Palestinian side after like a year and started becoming critical of the genocide in Gaza. But when it comes to things like this, CNN's right back, locks into position as a regime change propaganda outlet. So then number 11, Iran cuts the internet, jams Starlink. They caught, the Iranians report, and if you've seen the pictures online, it's quite impressive. 40,000 Starlink terminals were shipped into Iran for all of these agent provocateurs, activists, and whatever. So they jam Starlink. So the color revolution, regime change fails. It fizzles out within 48 hours. And then millions of people, and this is the important part, 2 million people come onto the street in Tehran, and collectively millions more around the country in support of the government. Let me just ask you a question. What government in the West can call and get 2 million people out in the street to support it? Just name me one. Name me one. The only time you get 2 million people on the street in the West is people protesting an illegal war, like they did with Iraq, or like you're seeing opposing the genocide against the Palestinians. Okay, that's when you see millions of people in the West get out. Show me a Western government where millions of people will come out in support of the government. Iran is one such place. And this is why they basically blacked out that from the Western mainstream media. So they lost. The regime change flopped. It failed. They did a lot of damage. They killed a lot of innocent Iranians. They killed 100 police officers. They killed nurses. They burnt medical clinics. These violent rioters, armed by the U.S. and the Israelis, probably the British intelligence are involved, but definitely we say led by the U.S. and Israel, okay? They burned 200 mosques. They burned mosques with people inside. This is an Islamic country. Real Iranians do not burn mosques or burn Qurans, okay? These are outsiders. This is a Gladio operation. And these aren't democratic protesters. Democratic protesters don't go and beat people, innocent, elderly people in the street. And we'll show you some of the video of that in a minute. So anyway, now it flops, and then suddenly the U.S. and Israel were forced to call off or delay their airstrike on Iran. And that's where we're at right now. So I just want to focus on these last three here, okay? And this is the thing with good old Trump is so, and we'll look at, well, first of all, let's deal with, here's Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, okay? We'll bring him up on screen first because this is setting up a narrative here. And so this is Trump's. I mean, when did Treasury secretaries do foreign policy? I don't think so. But it's become the norm with the Trump administration. So he puts this out on X, and this is just one of the worst pieces of propaganda that anyone has ever seen. It would be embarrassing, but I think we're past that point with what's going on with this government. So here's Scott Bessent. And this is very cringeworthy, and it's just so full of lies, but you have to hear it. Let's hear it.
My message today is to the Iranian leadership on behalf of the people of Iran who cannot speak for themselves. Last March, we predicted that President Trump's maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian regime would accelerate an economic collapse. Since then, our sanctions efforts have been effective in slashing oil exports and cutting revenue.
Okay, firstly, did you hear that? Maximum pressure sanctions, that their goal was to collapse the Iranian economy. Do you know how many people have died or how many people have suffered from this economic warfare? They're cutting off their ability to earn money, and Iran, to give power to its people, its citizens, they have nuclear power plants. Because the reason they have a nuclear energy program is because of sanctions on their oil by the U.S. So the U.S. did what? Donald Trump did what in June? It blew up their civilian nuclear power program or attacked it. They don't want Iranians to have energy until there's a pro-U.S. government in place. They can't even have nuclear energy. You can't be independent, according to the U.S. So Bessent just admitted this was collective punishment. They're not even hiding it. Anyway, we'll Listen to what he's saying here. There's just so many incredible lies that are being told, but we'll bring this back.
The currency and living conditions are in free fall. The early warning signs are already flashing in the Iranian economy. The regime continues to egregiously mismanage its economic resources with additional subsidies and price controls.
Look at this. He just said that living conditions are in free fall because of U.S. sanctions. And then in the same breath, he accuses the Iranian regime of mismanaging their resources. So you're strangling the country economically, you're attacking it, you're bombing it, and then you're saying that the government's mismanaging their resources. I mean, it's so incoherent and so criminal. And they can't even they can't even contain their hypocrisy from sentence to sentence. First of all, the Treasury Secretary in the U.S. should never be putting out social media videos like this because it's very incriminating. Not to mention incoherent, but it looks like they put him up to it. Why can't Marco Rubio make this video? No, because they had to put somebody in here to blame them in case this doesn't work out. And Scott Bessent obliged, sadly.
The central bank is broke and printing money. Hyperinflation is next. Rather than build...
So he's admitted they have caused and triggered hyperinflation. So destroying society openly, destroying the economy, and then blaming it on the Iranian leadership. They did the exact same thing to Venezuela. Exactly the same thing. And to Syria as well. And they won't stop until they get what they want, which is they want to overthrow the government and then steal everything that's not nailed down in the country. Seriously. There's open criminality.
Building a prosperous Iran, the regime has chosen to squander what remains of the nation's oil revenues on nuclear weapons development, missiles, and terrorist proxies.
Okay, that's a lie. There's no evidence that they're developing nuclear weapons. Zero. According to the United States government-owned intelligence assessment, Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. They don't have them. And yet he's still blaming them for squandering their resources when the sentence before he's boasting about collapsing their economy and pushing their currency into free fall. You can't blame the government for mismanaging the economy when you have got your hand around their throat, or better yet, your boot on their neck. It's completely incoherent. And this is what all these for hire Quisling influencers all over social media repeat this basic script from Central Casting.
Around the world. Civilians are rightly protesting mismanagement and economic collapse. President Trump stands with the people of Iran and has ordered Treasury to sanction members of the regime.
So he just bragged about the U.S. collapsing their economy, and then he's saying the people are on the street protesting the collapse of the economy and blaming the regime, and they're sanctioning members of the regime and so forth. It's immoral, it's criminal. But what's more shocking is how many people are so thick that they can't put two and two together and listen and realize what's actually being said to them here. They've fallen for this psyop year in, year out with all of these countries. And with the terrible thing about Trump is what he's doing around the world. The great thing about Trump is now Trump is so sloppy and bullish that the agenda is so clear for everybody to see that they can't even gloss it over. The Democrats were really good at glossing the stuff over. But with Trump, it's all out in the open. And he's pushing out people like the Treasury Secretary who shouldn't be making statements like this publicly and really giving the game away. He's got his hands together the whole video, which is weird. But
Iran's leaders have brutally responded to peaceful demonstrations with violence.
So that's a lie. It wasn't the peaceful demonstrations were done, and in the third day, the Israeli intelligence, U.S. intelligence, U.S. sent in armed Kurdish battalion, which ended up getting wiped out. They sent them in armed. So the violence was not peaceful. Okay, they killed. They have unarmed policemen in Iran called Basij. They're like specials in the UK. If you're British, you know what specials are. These people, armed and coordinated by U.S. intelligence, by the Israelis, killed almost 100 of these specials, which are unarmed police, sort of, peacekeeping police, like you have in European countries. They killed them. If you did that in America, if you had foreign-backed rioters in America coming in and killing 100 police officers, how do you think the U.S. government or the British government or the German government or the Canadian government, how would they treat terrorism on that scale? Do you think they would, back off and say, hey, have your little democratic picnic? No. They do what Trump is doing. They'd probably label them all terrorists and basically no holds barred. And we know that, and that's why you don't see that sort of thing happening in the West. But we're not a target of regime change by foreign powers. Iran is. So it's so hypocritical, and to even say it's a double standard at this point, it's almost ridiculous because it's laughable.
From mass shootings in the street to attacks on wounded victims in hospitals.
So he's lying. He reversed it. The U.S.-backed provocateurs, the Israeli agents, were shooting people on the street in order to create a firefight in which innocent bystanders were caught in the middle. That's what we've seen from the reportage. But Scott Bessent and the U.S. propagandists have reversed it, saying that the, quote, regime has done this. Then they'll say if there's body bags, or images of body bags in Iran, they'll say these are all innocent democratic protesters. Some of the body bags were police, dead Iranians caught in the crossfire, and also dead terrorists. I mean, it's clear as a definition of terrorism as you can possibly get. Anyway, I don't think I can't watch much more of that. So let's go on to look at, here's an example here. This is on just a really typical example of what I just described. So you'll see these armed maniacs coming in and beating an old man and setting his car on fire. It's probably a taxi driver or something like this. And there are too many of these examples, way, way too many. So let's take a look at this. So not very democratic, masked rioters beating up random Iranians in order to pull in the police and create crossfire. That's basically the game plan. And there's so many examples of this. This is just one. And I'll show you another important. So on the body bag issue, you'll see claims of thousands of bodies piling up. And we'll debunk that in a minute. But here's a good example of probably not being told on the Western mainstream media here. And this is Hadi Nasrallah, who is an excellent independent journalist based in, I believe, Lebanon. And he says here, The body bags you saw in Iran were mostly of these militants and mercenaries who were orchestrated by Mossad and the CIA, killed in armed confrontations. Calling them peaceful protesters, quote unquote, is a stretch. That's an understatement. And you see some footage here as well. So the Iranians aired all this on their national TV. They have video footage of these armed groups just shooting random people. You can see they're given guns by our intelligence services and CIA, Israeli intelligence. Okay. And Iran was they even invited the ambassadors of the UK, Germany, Italy, and France to come and inspect the evidence. So our governments know this, but they're not saying it publicly, which shows you how dishonest our governments are. Instead, they make propaganda statements like the one we just saw, which is shameful. But these people don't care about the truth. They have an operation. They want to topple the government in Iran, and the truth doesn't even come into it for these people. They don't care. Full stop. So, and again, they'll say, "Oh, the body bags. Oh, the thought." And have you seen the footage of the body bags? I mean, that's all you hear. But they don't show you all of these terrorist attacks. Innocent people were killed by these thugs, these Gladio thugs that we sent in. Okay, jackals. Hundreds, thousands of them. Billions of dollars were spent on this destabilization operation already. Billions. That's without even the military attack. Okay, so we'll go back. We'll bring this back up on stage here. So this is important. Okay, once the internet was cut and the Starlink, Elon Musk's terminals were jammed, it died down. It was proof that it was coordinated from the outside. Standard playbook. And the U.S. and Israel were forced to call it off because they didn't get the destabilization and the regime change. It wasn't weak enough for them to come in with a military strike, the hammer, if you will. So they had to call it off. And Israel's defenses weren't ready for an Iran retaliation. So they panicked. It's a delay. They're still planning to attack. Here's a Jerusalem Post. Mossad spurs Iranian protests, says agent within demonstrations using their Farsi account. Okay. They're putting out so much propaganda. So Israeli press have all admitted that Mossad is running the riots. Okay. So it's not me. It's Israel's own media. It's just one of many outlets. They're bragging about it, in fact. Mike Pompeo publicly stated this. Big Israel supporter, former CIA director. So this is beyond debate at this point. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is what's happened. Okay? And so here's Trump in his infinite wisdom, being the stable genius that he is. So Trump basically, and then they're saying, oh, there's going to be executions tomorrow. There's going to be public hangings. Okay? They're claiming that all these people have been killed, but there's no evidence they have. So Trump is basically, because there's no military strike, because they didn't get the destabilization, Trump is saying that, oh no, he's called it off because he told the Iranians not to massacre people and they stopped, and he's taking the credit for it. So Trump's taking credit for stopping a massacre that never happened and stopping public mass hangings that weren't going to happen. Okay, so he just comes in, because it's not happening, he claims that he stopped it. This is the incredible, this guy is unbelievable.
Killing has stopped. Who told you that the killings have stopped?
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There was supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out. But we've been told on good authority, and I hope it's true. Who knows, right? Who knows?
Who was he told on good authority? I hope it's true. Who knows? Doesn't sound very certain to me, does it? Who told him? Was it Fox? Who was it? Was it Sebastian Gorka? Who's good authority? Was it Reza Pahlavi Jr., the prince king in waiting? Like who? So you never get a straight answer out of this guy because he's BSing and making it up as he goes along most of the time.
Easy
Body
world.
bags. So how do you trust
No, no.
So there's Trump. I mean, not surprised. Not surprised. So just an absolute circus. And you have people like Mark Levine, another sort of bloviating hot air machine, the human hair dryer, Mark Levine at Fox. Zero talent, but gifted a primetime show on Fox, which is quite extraordinary because he's basically an advocate for, guess who? Israel, of course. So this is the Efran Soltani. This is the sort of face. They're claiming he was executed. All of these anonymous accounts on X. It's hard to verify whether this is true, but what's important is that you have mainstream media figures that are reproducing and amplifying random claims on platforms like X, okay? Which shows that people like Mark Levine and who work for all these U.S. outlets, they're not journalists. Because if they were, they would probably do a little more research. And they're saying authorities have blocked his family from visiting him in the morgue. And you have all these stories. And they just get faker and faker and faker. So whether this is true or not, who is this person actually? Because it was circulating on social media, therefore it's true. So this could turn out to be a construct. But the emotional wave, it's been used, and this will even be used by governments as proof of something that happened, even if it didn't happen. That's where we're in right now in terms of the propaganda and PSYOP. No one's interested in verifying anything. They're only interested in demonizing the Iranian government and using this as justification for a military strike and to keep sanctions on, etc. That's it. That's all anybody cares about. Not whether any of these claims are true. And meanwhile, they've threatened to kill, the U.S. has already threatened to kill the supreme leader. They think that that's going to be, something they can achieve is to assassinate their leader. And Trump, I can see Trump doing that. And then like with Maduro, and then claim that as some kind of a victory, like he did with the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, claiming that Soleimani was a terrorist when quite clearly he wasn't. He was fighting ISIS in Iraq, unlike the U.S., who did no fighting on the ground against ISIS. The U.S. had a hands-off policy when it came to engaging ISIS on the ground. The Iranians did it. They got rid of ISIS. The Iranians and the Hashdo-Shabi. And of course, if you fight ISIS, the U.S. will label you as a terrorist group. That's the U.S. government saying, don't you dare touch ISIS. The same with Israel. Don't you dare attack ISIS. Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they're ours. Those are our terrorists, says Washington. How dare you attack them? Okay. So here's U.S.-Israel operation to destabilize Iran. What comes next? Trump, needs a quick victory to repair the optics. Okay? The optics of this are not good right now for the Trump administration. The U.S.-Israel attempt to assassinate the Iranian leader, that's quite possibly what comes next. And repeated, quote, surgical airstrikes to wreck infrastructure in Iran, further damage the country, cause more suffering. Very moral. Continued economic siege sanctions, the, quote, Syrian model of weakening and destroying the target nation, that will be ongoing. Desperate U.S., U.K. will engage in more piracy on the high seas, stealing oil tankers, hijacking ships, claiming they're enforcing sanctions. Why? They want to escalate the war atmosphere. That's what the U.S. and the U.K. are doing on the high seas. Okay, that's what's coming next, just so you know. So we'll look at next here. And again, here expect the U.S. and Trump to pivot quickly to something new this week. So it looks like Greenland is the sort of main sort of area of excitement for this president, and also pivot to escalatory or strident talk against China, Cuba, possibly another regime change or threat of taking out another head of state in the Western Hemisphere, in order to deflect from criticisms of failures in Ukraine, Gaza, Venezuela, and of course, the longer it goes without their military strike, is the Iran operation will be seen as a failure. So I think they could strike Iran in days. Days. I think they're desperate, but clearly there's a few things that are not in place. Would you rule out the United States using tactical nuclear weapons or allowing Israel to deploy nuclear weapons against the Iranians? I wouldn't rule it out. They're desperate. They're really, really desperate. And they're scared because they know Iran can trash Tel Aviv and all of the Israeli military facilities and U.S. bases in the Middle East. So they are a little bit trepidatious, a little bit scared. Certainly Israel should be scared. I'm sure a lot of people in Israel do not want to attack Iran because they know it's coming. When Iran it retaliates, they'll hit Israel very hard. And if the U.S. didn't come and bail out Israel during the so-called 12-day war, another week of that, and I think Israeli society probably would have broken up and collapsed. Definitely the Netanyahu government would have been out on the street. And probably a few 100,000 more people would have left Israel. But Israel put a moratorium. They did not allow people to leave the country while it was being hit by missiles. They're desperate because they didn't want to lose all their soldiers. That's how popular, they're about as popular as Zelensky's conscription army there. So we'll look at the influencers in a moment, but I want you to pay attention here. Regime change propaganda, okay? This is how this part of the operation works. You see, Elon Musk is an important part of this, okay? There's X. This is his platform, which the algorithm gives priority to all of the Iran regime change videos. How do I know this? They're all in my feed. I don't follow any of these people, okay? And that's for everybody. So they get massive traction, loads of views. If you put out fake news against Iran, you will be rewarded on this platform. If you put out truth and you try to do real analysis, you will be penalized. Starlink. Those are Elon's mobile internet terminals for low orbit satellite internet access. Okay. Now, so X and Starlink. Okay. They get internet access. So the CIA and the Israelis very involved with the distribution of Starlink in Iran. Okay. That's part of an intelligence operation. So with Starlink, you can get images of, fires or some kind of, protest or whatever, or violence on the street, and then edit it, upload it, and then it makes its way back onto X. Okay, so you can see that's the system. Elon Musk is in control or has his organizations have his hand in this propaganda mill, basically. And then the offshoot of this, of course, is like, an Israeli-aligned U.S. media outlet like CBS News, push those images there, and it just goes in circles. This is how the system works, just like that, okay? So just understand the process. This is a process. And they're just going to flood the zone with absolute garbage in terms of fake news, propaganda, and it's just endless. And they just won't relent. Again, I'll leave that up on screen so you can see. So, when Starlink came out, it was supposed to bring the internet to everybody. It turned out to be a military and regime change tool for the United States. And it can probably do a lot worse, quite frankly. This is the light end of Starlink. Okay? We can talk about that later. What the other things that they're working on with Starlink would really disturb quite a few people, even people that are, supposedly against the Iranian government. If you knew what they had in mind with this grid, this system, you would not support it. Even some of the biggest hawks would say that's too much. But and try to get them to tell you about all this stuff openly in public, and no, you won't. This is a military application. Information warfare, propaganda, regime change. That's exactly what it is. So let's look at some of the propaganda, because this stuff is just too much. It's like unbelievable. So you have all these well-heeled Iranians in Los Angeles just putting out crazy stuff. I mean, we'll just give you a taste of some of it. It's endless, and it's laughable, a lot of this stuff. Oh, and by the way, this is how you can tell that the military strikes were called off, because when you see Lindsey Graham, after basically being high, nearly orgasmic over the last couple of weeks about the prospect of bombing Iran again, this was Lindsey's reaction when he found out that it's not on, basically. So we'll bring this up on screen. Let me find Lindsey. Here he is. There he is. You can tell it was called off. Look at this.
Headlines out there that are, in my view, not accurate. President Trump's resolve is not the question. The question is, when we do an operation like this, should it be bigger or smaller? I'm in the camp of bigger. Time will tell.
Poor Lindsey. Poor Lindsey.
Hopeful and optimistic that the regime days are numbered. There are a lot of head.
So to lift his spirits, he bragged that he flew out to Tel Aviv just after this, and he was probably greeted with all sorts of party favors. And I'm sure Lindsey had a very, very nice time in Tel Aviv. He went to re-energize his spirits there, you can imagine. So yeah, it was called off. It delayed. It was delayed. So that's about as good an indication as any that. And then you had sort of absolute clownish propaganda. This is probably the worst thing I've ever seen. This is Ted Cruz. Even had theme music behind it. I mean, these people are so desperate.
Talk directly to the people of Iran who are standing up, who are demonstrating incredible bravery, standing against the Ayatollah and the mullahs, standing for freedom. Thank you for your courage. You need to know America stands with you. America stands with your fight, and President Trump has your backs. You are in our prayers. We are standing with you, and these tyrants will fall due to your incredible bravery. God bless you.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Again, these people can't embarrass themselves. I think they're just beyond. It's so cringeworthy. Ted, please. I mean, that was probably the worst one on the political side. And then they have these are the usual boilerplate Iranian opposition figures who basically have made a living shilling for regime change in the U.S. media. That's basically all they do. Here's one of them.
Of left and liberal in America, in Europe, is not an accidental silence. It's an ideological silence, because they believe that our suffering of the Iranian women, Iranian men.
What is she talking about? She is probably sitting in $1 million apartment in New York City, in Manhattan. Okay. And this is her shtick. She is a paid opposition figure sponsored by Uncle Sam, and totally hysterical and unhinged. And she's been doing this for years, just demonizing the Iranians and claiming that she speaks for the Iranians, and clearly she doesn't.
Thousands of people being killed or injured.
So again, the lies they're spreading about the mass casualties and who's responsible and how it all happened, none of the context. It's just bloviating, hyperventilating, crazed. These are the go-to opposition figures. that the U.S. media have on speed dial. Crazy, crazy people.
Not like the thing that they can talk about it, because it will expose their hypocrisy, and it will expose that how they sympathize with our killers, with Islamist terrorists. When they see that.
So they're calling the government Islamist terrorists in Iran, when in fact we sent in the terrorists to kill actual Iranians. So this crazy woman does not speak for Iran, clearly. She's speaking from her Brooklyn apartment or whatever. She's hoping, cheering on the U.S. bombing Iran, which is going to kill many, many people like it did last time. Okay? These people don't care about Iranians. They care about helping to get a U.S.-backed puppet in power. And if it means killing, thousands of people to achieve that, then, they don't have a problem with that. These people are so crass and so immoral. It's, and these she's absolutely nuts. You'll see her on Fox all the time. Fox loves people like this. So it's just one of those sort of go-to people. So here is, I'll show you the Crown Prince. Let's look at the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, as he is known. So let me see. Yeah, of course, this is CBS, the kosher broadcasting system in America. And so they've got the prince here. And so this is the guy that believes that he is the rightful ruler of Iran. He's never been to Iran since he left as a teenager in 1979. He's been living in the lap of luxury in the Maryland suburbs in Washington, D.C., a kept creature of the U.S. government, hoping to parachute him in for, that glorious moment that he's been waiting his whole life for, and he'll probably continue to wait, because I don't think it's going to happen, Mr. Reza Pahlavi, because, well, as he even to his own admission, he doesn't actually know anybody in Iran. So the idea that this is going to be the future king or whatever, I mean, it's kind of a joke. But here he is. This is very revealing what he says here. Listen.
And as you are urging people to protest and go to the streets, the death toll is rising in Iran. This violent crackdown continues just as it has in past attempted revolutions. I mean, is it responsible?
This wasn't a revolution. You see how CBS, Israeli propagandists, are framing it. They're calling this a revolution. So we fund and arm terrorists to come in like we did with Syria, like we do with other regime change operations, and then try to call it a revolution in our media. And here's their puppet that they want to install, who nobody supports and who hasn't even been to Iran, doesn't know anybody in Iran, prefers to live in the United States. But he's doing his work here.
Responsible to be sending citizens in Iran to their deaths? Sending citizens.
Listen carefully. She's asked him a specific question.
As in past attempted revolutions. I mean, is it responsible to be sending citizens in Iran to their deaths? Do you bear some responsibility?
As I said, this is a war, and war has casualties. In fact, in order to preserve and protect and minimize the death toll, minimize innocent victims yet again be killed by this regime, action is needed.
So this guy is so, this is sort of the cutthroat mercenary type. He has just called the protesters combatants. Did you get that subtle turn of phrase? He's saying this is war, and, some people are going to have to die for me, the king. So he's admitted they're combatants. If he hasn't admitted it, he's basically put them in the combatant territory. And we're gonna have to, the tree of the monarchy has to be, watered with the blood of loyal subjects, basically is what he's saying. This is a monarch who, so this is the democratic revolution. You've got a monarch puppet in Washington waiting to get into power, but nobody in Iran knows him or supports him. It's a clown show. And he's saying they need to die. So Iranians need to die for him to make sure he can come into power. So crass, so immoral. There's no limit to what these people, I mean, this is just insane. This is not the heir apparent, but it's all they have in Washington. This clown, Reza Pahlavi. Unbelievable, this guy. Let's see what he has to say. I mean, we'll listen to a little bit more, but...
The regime is going to try and brutalize its citizenry as it has always done.
So look at the imagery. So they won't tell you that some of these are innocent people caught in the crossfire of U.S. and Israeli agent provocateurs, as well as some dead terrorists, okay? I mean, if you're armed, you're setting fire to mosques and buildings and hospitals, and you're shooting people, you're kind of a terrorist. That's a pretty safe sort of description of the... I mean, it's about as pure of a definition as you'll get. But anyway, these people, no shame whatsoever. So same video you can see here on heavy rotation. Everyone shared all this. Again, this might be, who knows what the context of it is, but there was no revolution in Iran. This was a destabilization operation. Make no mistake about it. Anybody telling you otherwise is absolutely lying. So speaking of liars, let's look at some of these influencers here. This is, here's one. This is sort of a classic sort of BBC, Sky News style bit of propaganda here. This is from Yalda Hakim. It's always some audio that's being played, mysterious audio to make it sound like or seem like this is some sort of secret connection or whatever. And a friend of a friend told me, and so forth. Literally making this stuff up. This is not, so this is a mainstream journalist here pretending to do journalism, but what she's really doing is hearsay and probably well-scripted propaganda, more likely.
It's so difficult to get information from inside Iran because of this ongoing internet shutdown and the blackout. But I've just spoken to a young man who has left the country. He told me some incredibly horrifying stories.
They were rolling the people up in small, there's so many children there, in small bags that they were throwing in two warehouses.
He told me about going to a cemetery where he believes there were somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 bodies, including bodies of children, he said.
So this is just a guy in Germany who's telling her that he believes that there's 2,000 bodies piled up. There's no evidence of it. She doesn't even know if he was actually there. He claims to have left the country. It's just propaganda. This is classic Western regime change propaganda.
That there were black bags piled up on top of each other, and then trucks were arriving and piling more bodies on top of the existing bodies in this large warehouse by this cemetery. He was looking...
This is just intelligence services like propaganda, basically. There's nothing journalistic about this. I mean, if you had a real media outlet and you saw this person doing this, you'd never hire them. This is clearly just scripted propaganda with all the sort of, emotional kind of pulling faces.
For the friend of his brother's wife. And he...
The friend of his brother's wife, friend of my friend's brother's wife's roommate. And I'm in Germany, and trust me, bro, everything I'm saying is totally above board. So again, this is going via Sky News. It's just, it's all BS. Okay? This is not journalism. All unverified, all unconfirmed. All of it. But you have to believe it because the emotional wave is riding, and that's all that counts for these people. I mean, it could just go on and on. There's so much fakery. I mean, they even wheeled out Uri Geller. Uri Geller. I mean, when Uri Geller is putting out propaganda for Iran, I guess he needed the $7,000. But It's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. This is a clown show. Absolute clown show. And there's no shortage. They threw so much money at this. Maybe he's just doing it for Israel. I don't know. But Uri Geller. Let's see what Uri has to say. What's the script for Uri? Let's see. He's going to bend spoons.
President Donald Trump, I am just shocked. I cannot believe what I just heard, what I just read. It's like, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare what you just said. I mean...
So this is with the same stuff they did with October 7th. I can't believe what I just heard. Someone called me and told me what happened. 40 beheaded babies, etc. Absolute pure propaganda. This is just like not even good Hollywood.
How can you thank a regime that just murdered in the last, 2-3 weeks, 12,000, 20,000 people? This is outrageous. You thank the Ayatollahs? Donald Trump, I mean, what's happening to you?
So they're trying to get the Jewish Israelis to browbeat Donald Trump into an airstrike, basically. So they're deploying all these, because they know Trump's a soft touch, and when he sees celebrities, he sort of gets a little bit weak, and he might cave, basically. This is well known with Trump. Put enough pressure directly on him with some high-profile people, and he might move. So that was the plan, I guess, that the U.S. would do the heavy lifting for Israel, and you have all these shills. So, I mean, just to prove to you how scripted this stuff is, there's another guy named Patrick Bet David, okay, PBD, okay, and he's just, I mean, he's been batting for Reza Pahlavi. He wants the king to come in because maybe Trump promised him an ambassador position in the new regime or something. Who knows what motivates these people? But he left Iran. He's a Syrian Christian. Left Iran when he was 11, which he believes qualifies him to be an expert on Iran. And just to show what a script these people are, this is the most ridiculous conspiracy theory that they have on why the stars have aligned, basically, he says. But then another Iranian wealthy influencer is reading the same script. Watch, just to show you how well organized all of this is. This will really blow you away.
But you know what I think is special about right now? Let me tell you something that's very special, and I hope this resonates with you. You know what's crazy? How many years has it been since Iran was free? How many years? 47 years. Huh. The current U.S. president, what number president is he in U.S.? Oh my God, the 47th president. Maybe the stars are lined up for Iran to be free. And maybe the stars are lined up, but you need Trump for this to become a reality.
I noticed something interesting. Mr. Trump is the 47th president of the United States, and this is also the 47th year of the Islamic regime in Iran. History is speaking. Nothing is a coincidence. Isn't it strange how moments line up right before change? We are entering a new era. An era of fear is coming to an end.
So those were two separate videos reading the same script, and it's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. These people are ridiculous. There's hundreds of these videos. They spent millions on these influencers, millions. And Elon opened up the algorithm so all this garbage could flood into our feeds. Okay, and TikTok as well. So, I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's hard to take these people seriously. But, you know, hey, it's a regime change psyop, so everybody needs to get on board with it. So, God. Only Trump can save us. It's got a little bit of a QAnon type of air to it. if you know what I mean. So what they won't show you, obviously, is real Iranians and women in Iran. So we've looked at everybody in Hollywood and Montreal and Brooklyn, New York, but the Western media will not show you any women from Tehran like this.
خودم به شخصه اومدم اینجا چون که اومدم پشت رهبرم باشم و اینکه هم تشکر کنم از در واقع نیروی امنیتی، بسیج، سپاه، نیروی انتظامی و بهشون بگم که قدردانشون هستیم و مردم ایران هم که خودتون میبینید همینایی که اینجان، اونایی که شبا این چند شبه از پنجشنبه که اومدن بیرون، اونا یه مش فتنه‌گر و آشوبگر بودن.
So just an example, and the whole hijab thing is a complete psyop. Okay, they're claiming that women get thrown in jail for not wearing a hijab. It's not true. Not in Iran. Okay, doesn't happen. In fact, there's Western girls putting up videos, like Syrian girl was in Iran a couple weeks ago. She's walking around with no hijab, as well as her translator or the person she's with. So, and you'll see plenty of videos of women uncovered in Tehran. So, you know, it's optional. It's not, you know, so if that's part of the propaganda, is to demonize Iranian society using women's feminist themes. Okay. So we'll go back to our propaganda here. So again, all these claims about casualties, mass casualties, Gray Zone's done a good report here on this. So you can go to their website, National Endowment for Democracy. That's a CIA cutout. Okay, that's where these reports are coming from. And then they're getting fed to Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, U.S. and Western mainstream media. And that's why you have this sort of situation where 2,000 massacred, then like an hour later it's 5,000, a couple hours later they say it's 10, then it's up to 20. I think I heard someone say it was 50,000, and another one called it a genocide already. It's stupid. Okay. And then mass executions tomorrow by the regime. Okay. Where's all this coming from? Oh, unconfirmed casualty numbers coming from Western human rights activist orgs. None of these groups are in Iran. These are all NGOs, mostly in the U.S. There's a list of them. Abdulrahman Borman Center for Human Rights in Iran. It's not in Iran. It's in the United States. Center for Human Rights in Iran is not in Iran, it's in the U.S. or in the West. Iran human rights activists in Iran, etc. Iran International News, okay, National Endowment for Democracy, CIA, Israel. That's where all these claims are coming from. CIA cutout fronts, State Department funded NGOs, okay. There's one, Iran International News. It's not an Iranian outlet. Israeli intelligence officials are on record. I think Ravid Barak, I think his name is, former intelligence head. He said this is a clearinghouse for Israeli propaganda. This media outlet. And this is, Google has prioritized this outlet, which is a clearinghouse for Israeli propaganda, for news on Iran. Okay, that's how this information system works. Big tech is involved in all of this, as is X, for curating propaganda for regime change. It's a military operation, and Silicon Valley plays a massive role in it. Okay, and again, this is Israeli. This is effectively an Israeli cutout media outlet. So when you see this, know exactly what it is. Okay. Just do a casual search. Again, you go online, you do a search, Iran human rights activist organizations. You'll get all of them. These are all Western. And they're all affiliated with those organizations and entities. Okay? That's where all the claims of mass casualties and human rights abuses are coming from. So we can send in terrorists. We can send in weapons. We can kill innocent Iranians. We can shoot unarmed police. And supposedly that's a democratic or democracy protest. It's beyond a joke, folks. And here's the influencers, $7,000 per post. Why is Israel paying $7,000? Responsible statecraft. This is well documented. The Esther Project. It's just one of many agencies recruiting online influencers, paying them massive amounts of money to post anti-Iranian or pro-Israeli videos or posts on social media. They're plowing millions of dollars into this. Millions. In fact, it's a bottomless budget. It's a bottomless budget. So now the regime change has stalled, so time to accuse Iran of launching chemical weapons. So this is Mario Nafal. Iranian regime may have used chemical weapons against protesters. So this is absolute disinformation and egregious propaganda. And just take a good close look here. So it says not verified yet, if you read closely, below the headline. Most people don't read the whole tweet. So he says, oh, not verified yet. And then goes on to say, but if true. And then goes on, source, GB News and Basil the Great. Basil the Great is an anonymous sock puppet account on X. So Elon Musk has elevated Mario to the top of X. Okay. He gets full algorithmic, unfettered access to feeds, allowed to grow, makes tons of money. And it's just disinformation, not verified yet. But if true, source Basil the Great and GB News. So what chemical weapons attacks? So if all else fails, WMDs. And they're pushing this garbage on the internet. So we'll get to the London protests in a second. We'll wrap this up as quickly as we can because I want to go to break in a moment. But so here's GB News on the chemical weapons canard. I mean, totally shameless. Listen to this guy.
Member of the Labour Foreign Policy Group, and I received a report just before we came on air tonight. I hasten to add this is not verified yet, but it's overcrowded with the...
It's not verified yet. So he received the report, which wasn't verified yet. Listen, if you say you're in government and you say you received the report and it's not verified, that means it's not a report. This is just like the worst propaganda, and they're pushing this out on a mainline television program. This is pure propaganda. Chemical weapons attacks, not verified.
Report to me, and it says the city's prison is overcrowded with detained and arrested protesters. The court halls are filled with families of detainees, and no lawyers are being allowed to defend those who have been arrested. People believe that some kind of toxic chemical substance has been used against protesters, causing some of the injured to lose their lives days later. The number of those killed and injured is very high.
Wow, this must be like Novichok. So you get exposed to the chemical, but you lose your life days later. It's sort of a delayed reaction, like with the Skripals. Must be Novichok, right? It's the only thing that the deadliest nerve agent known to man has a delayed reaction. Has to be Novichok. Magic, absolute magic. Again, everything he said, he prefaced saying it was unconfirmed. In other words, could just be made up. Why even read it? Why go to press with it if it's, quote, unconfirmed? This is pure regime change war propaganda.
If that is true, I think that's extraordinarily concerning.
Wow. So just to clarify on that then, Bill, that...
If that's true, it's extraordinary. So it's just like social media rumors on news programs. I mean, these people are not embarrassed at all, by the way, by this. Zero journalistic standards. Zero.
The information that you seem to be getting there is from credible source, so that the Iranian...
Incredible source, and it's unconfirmed. It's not an incredible source. So this anchor is buttressing his fake news of the person who's sitting next to him. This is like a propaganda circle jerk, is what it is.
regime, the Ayatollah, might have used some sort of chemical weapon against their own people, against protesters, and we are now seeing a delayed reaction to that then. So we're a few days on from that, a couple of days on from that, and now we're starting to see loss of life as a result of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, there's history in this part of the region. You look at Saddam Hussein, you know, who used gases against 5,000 people in Halabja and murdered them brutally. And I feel this has got...
So this is just so stupid, what this guy's saying. And I'll tell you, this is just, it's uninformed. He's clueless. He's citing Saddam Hussein in Iraq as some kind of rationale that this unconfirmed chemical weapons accusation that's just been magicked up might be true, because in the region you see these things. Somebody needs to inform this genius that Saddam Hussein used British-supplied chemical weapons against Iran, against the Iranians. The Americans and the British supplied chemical weapons to Saddam Hussein, which he used in the Iraq-Iran war against Iranians. Iranians have been victims of chemical attacks. Victims. Supplied by Western governments. That's how clueless, when they're making their propaganda stories, they can't even, these people are so ignorant. They have a narrative and they're just going to push it. And even if it sounds clownish, they don't mind. I mean, you'd be embarrassed if, he would be embarrassed if he actually knew the truth, but I don't think these people care about facts or history. They have a narrative to push, and that's it. That's all they care about.
Real echoes of that.
Well, and where is our red line on this? Where is Trump's red line on this? I suppose that's the more pressing question, really, given that he's...
Where's our red line on this? Where's Trump's red line? Like Obama's red line? Are they going to allow them to cross the red line? Are we going to enforce the red line? I mean, here we go. This is so stupid. This is, they push the WMD canard is like the last card to play. And you know what? They're going to keep pushing this because it's worked so well before. People believe it. At least people in the West believe it. So, I mean, it's just like ridiculous.
Would unquestionably be the one who would launch the first strike if there is one. You know, if this is true, no reason to doubt it. If this is true, no reason to doubt it. If this is true, no reason to doubt it? Is this journalism or what is this? Is this a student news program that we're watching here? Like, is this serious? GB News? Are you guys serious? If it's true, no reason to doubt it. Must be true. It fits our narrative, so it must be true. No reason to doubt it. True that chemical weapons have been used on the Iranian people by the regime. I think all of that might be the sign to do something.
But the key question is, what do you do?
Oh, that might be the sign to intervene. We can launch a military attack because chemical weapons have been used. How long are people going to fall for this canard, this propaganda? It's so ridiculous. But these people are not creative. They just recycle the same old tactics, even if they fail. And so here's Nigel Farage outside the Iranian embassy here, and I don't even think he understands where he's at. We'll show you. Look at this. So Farage is now active, calling for regime change.
Beautiful Persian people, you wonderful people, you freedom fighters. This time, are we going to win? Yes, we are. We're going to win. And it is a terrible price. A terrible price being paid by many innocent people in every Iranian city right now. But you've got to believe that this is the moment.
We really appreciate you. May God bless you. And we wish everything good.
Well, may God bless all of you. And let freedom for Iran.
So he's got the royal flag there, you see. So Nigel Farage is at a royalist party to install a monarch in Iran. So not very democratic at all, not on any level at all. So I don't even think he realizes that that's the monarchist flag, and that's Reza Pahlavi picture behind him. It's such a clown. It's clown world. It's clown world, folks. We are in clown world. And let's look at that London protest. Why the royal flag and the Israeli flag? Why do they have to go together? And this is what happened. These royalist protesters basically put 4 police officers in the hospital. They were violent, using violent tactics. These are the people. This was later after Farage spoke. So that's who Nigel Farage was with, violent protesters that put 4 British police officers in the hospital, 14 arrested. So really nice rally there, very democratic, very peaceful, right? Of course, GB News isn't showing this. If they are, they're not going to tell you why it's happening like that. So, I mean, we could go on and on. There's so many crazy, crazy examples of the stuff that we've seen. It's beyond belief. We might have a shorter overdrive than normal. We've gone massively overtime here. Let's go take a break right now, and when we come back, hopefully we got a few minutes with our teammates just to do a pretty brief overdrive session and look at some of the comments from our listeners as well. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. This is the Sunday Wire, episode 578. Of this weekly omnibus program. I hope you enjoyed that deep dive. Certainly hope you've learned something as well. We'll be back in just a moment after this brief music break. Great tune here, great track from Red Rumble.
For in the final analysis, we all inhabit this small planet, and we are all mortal.
Lately I've been watching the world gone mad. Brothers and sisters full to take a stand, to hate their fellow man and upper man. Divide and conquer is the acronym plan. Distract the people, control the story. Don't believe your lying eyes. Know me. Stay in power, no matter what. Playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gather your trust. Pushing us to turn to good. Corruption and lies. Truth is the crime will turn to good. Well designed misery to keep you on edge, make you believe anything anyone says. Keep it left or right, not top to bottom. Accuse the victim, can't you see we got 'em? Stay in power, no matter what. Playing with the doomsday clock. Trust, pushing us to turn to good. We've captured rights. You lose our time, we'll turn to dust. To dust. Industrialized brutality, commercialized cruelty. People as commodity, cheer on war atrocity. No accountability, perpetual impunity.